The meta for Season 11 has begun to settle. Although there are certain roles and certain changes still being made by Riot to tweak certain roles into stronger positions, for the most part we have a pretty good idea of what champions are strong and what champions are weak. Pre-Season 11 has mostly been dominated by tanks and mages. Funfire Wind Cape is extremely broken. It allows tanks to do something that they didn't used to be able to do, which is scale damage into the late game. But the tankiest champion in Season 11 might not actually be a tank. One of the most effective frontliners in the game currently is technically not a pure tank, but rather he's a bruiser. And that champion is Kled. Although most Kled players have traditionally gone full damage or some version of bruiser, in the current season, the most successful Kled players are the ones that can switch up and adapt his role into a full tank role. This is how to play like a challenger. In the past, Kled players have always done the same thing every season. Dive in, service team engage, or re-engage. The core of his kit revolves around his ability to regain a second HP bar as he remounts on Skarl. Kled players have built pretty much the same exact items every season since he's been out. Black Cleaver, Tiamat, plus tanky bruiser items like Death Dance, Randuin's, and Hexdrinker. In Season 11, Kled players have been successful with two main versions of Kled. The first version serves as something similar to previous season, with items like Gore Drinker and Ravenous Hydra to provide both sustain and dueling potential. This Season 11 version of Kled plays similarly to past seasons, but with a little bit more damage, sustain, and wave clear. The obvious trade-off is of course the bulk and tankiness, since this season Kled no longer rushes Black Cleaver as his first item, so Kled players overall will have a little bit less total HP. But in terms of how strong this season's Kled is compared to last season, it's definitely improved. He still loses lots of 1v1s to certain bruisers very easily, such as Camille and Fiora, but Kled's late game has definitely improved with the new items of S11. Overall, Kled's win rate hasn't dropped below 52%, so that's a pretty good indicator that the champion is at a pretty strong position. The second version of Kled that is extremely strong is Tank Kled. Tank Kled not only has a higher average win rate than that of Damage Kled, it also scales significantly better. Why would a champion that builds full tank scale better than one that builds full damage? Here's why Tank Kled is so good. If you ignore his passive, Kled is a pretty mediocre champion. While nothing in his basic kit is necessarily bad, everything in it is just kind of average or slightly above average. If Kled did not have the ability to dismount and remount to regain a full HP bar, then Kled would probably be a terrible champion. In a late game teamfight, most people understand that the best way to shut down a Kled is to just burst him out when he gets dismounted. As a game of League of Legends drags on and the enemy carries start coming online to get their items, to get their burst, Kled players find it more and more difficult to be able to remount in the middle of a teamfight. Oftentimes, enemy players will save their CC or burst abilities for when they know that Kled is about to dismount in order to guarantee that he'll be out of the fight from then on. This is where Tank Kled shines. In past seasons, people have refrained from going into Tank Kled for a very simple reason. The total HP bonuses that you get from items like Randuin's, Warmogs, and Spirit Visage do not go into base Kled. They only go into Skarl. That means that dismounted Kled can only play with his base HPs. Although he still feels tankier when he buys resistances, he does not gain any more total HP when he gets dismounted. And so just going for pure resistances often isn't enough for Kled players to be able to survive the amount of time they need to be able to remount. In past seasons, Kled players also realized that Tank Kled isn't really much of a threat. If you don't have the damage of a normal Kled and you can't threaten an AD carry, then it doesn't really mean much in the late game even if you do get all of your HP back. Kled also doesn't have any hard CC, so he has no consistent way of shutting anyone down. Of course, this season, that problem is mitigated thanks to Sunfire Aegis, where every single tank will be able to scale damage into the late game. But Sunfire Aegis is not the main reason that you should be even trying to play Tank Kled. Because you cannot purchase HP in order to keep Kled alive longer for his dismounted form, the only consistent way to do that is with shielding. Gargoyle's Stoneplate aims to do something similar as it did last season, but it does it in a completely different way. New Stoneplate is actually slightly worse for tanks overall. Because the old version lasted 4 seconds and healed you if you didn't take too much damage, new Stoneplate now is a straight up 100% max HP shield that decays as soon as you start using it. This often means that tanks don't get the full value of this item. For a tank like Maokai and Ornn, unless they are very aware and conscious that they're about to take a lot of burst damage, which usually tanks don't take because they're tanks, it's very hard to get the full value out of Gargoyle Stoneplate. But with Kled, that's a different story. Since everyone is trying to burst you and take you down while you're dismounted, you are 100% sure that a lot of damage is going to be coming your way during that time. So when you have the two core tank items of a Kled where you have Sterix Gauge and Stoneplate, when you get dismounted as Kled, you will essentially have a full HP bar to tank for you while you're trying to remount. Kled's remount combo usually looks something like this. Q Pocket Pistol in order to gain 25 courage, assuming you hit all your bullets. Then 4 quick enhanced auto attacks with his W, putting him at about 85 courage. Then Kled needs 1 more regular auto attack on a champion, or 1 more Q in order to be able to remount safely. Kled's Q is on a 3-second cooldown, so if Kled is able to get 2 full Qs on a single dismount, he's pretty much guaranteed to remount on Skarl. The shielding on Gargoyle Stoneplate lasts 2.5 seconds, so it gives Kled the perfect amount of time to be able to get a guaranteed remount. Tank Kled essentially has 3 full HP bars: your normal full HP bar, your shield bar as enemies try to burst you, and then your remount bar. If you add all the shields and HP up together, it's around 11,000 effective HP. The biggest difference between Tank Kled and the other tanks is the effectiveness of how he uses Stoneplate. Because he's guaranteed to receive some form of burst or CC while using this item, Kled is guaranteed to get the most value out of this item out of any other tank in the game. Stoneplate is like a Tryndamere ultimate. It can be used even if Kled is under heavy CC, which means you're pretty much always guaranteed to get value out of this item. For your build, start either D-Shield or D-Blade depending on your matchup. If you're in a matchup where Kled feels stronger, feel free to go D-Blade. Otherwise, D-Shield is probably going to be your safest bet. For your first back, buy either Bammy Cinder, Iron Spike Whip, or Phage depending on what mythic you want to go first. Gore Drinker gives you a better 1-item power spike, but Sunfire Aegis usually scales a lot better. Finish your Sterix Gauge and your boots around the same time. You want Sterix Gauge first before Stoneplate so that you can get some HP in order to make your Stoneplate bigger. Once you finish these 3 core items, feel free to go into a variety of late game choices. Either Titanic or Ravenous Hydra are both great options for sustaining and getting bulkier. Black Cleaver, though not a great first item rush anymore, is still a very good item on Kled. Force of Nature or Thornmail for some resistances, and you can always go for Silvermere Dawn if you need a QSS against a crucial target. For your runes, if you're in a matchup where you are 100% going full tank Kled, Grasp of the Undying is going to be your best bet. It gives you good lane sustain and it allows you to scale better into the late game. Against other tanks such as Malphite and Shen, this is definitely going to be your best bet. But if you are going into the Conqueror version of Kled, you want to be taking this version when the enemy team composition is all tankier in general. This way you have a better guarantee of making sure that the team fights last a lot longer than what you expect them to. For your abilities, max Q, W, then E. While traditional Bruiser Kled is still better for snowballing early game advantages, snowballing off of squishy mages like Ryze and Kayle, the core build of Kled of Sterix Gauge and Stoneplate can be teched into pretty much any single Kled player looking to better guarantee an extra 5,000 HP in a fight. And though Kled is not the one they had in mind when Riot designed new Stoneplate, Kled is absolutely the best abuser of new Stoneplate. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, please check out my channel at Donghuaplol. You can hit the notification button to see when new content will be up. By hitting the notification button, you are also going to be able to take part in crucial polls that decide what new content is going to look like. The community tab also has updates and the latest news on League of Legends. If you want to see more content and updates, you can follow me on Twitter, Discord, or TikTok. Like, share, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye!